Hello there. My apologies for being a few minutes late, but unfortunately, my work did spill over a bit. I work as Dr. Whimsy Anderson's assistant from home. I make phone calls to her clients and patients. And I had a woman that I needed to spend some extra time with. She's had a rough period, and I didn't want to just cut her off and say I have a live stream to do at 5 o'clock, but it's 5:06, so I'm only a few minutes late here. And my first priority is to always be of service to other people, and that's what matters most. So pardon me, please, for getting myself assembled here. This is very, very fast. I had to just get set up on YouTube, type in all my information, pouring myself a little water here, a little dehydrated. Normally, I do all this before the show, but I wanted to get on here as quickly as I could. So it looks like no one has joined me just yet anyway. So I'm going to ramble for a bit here until somebody finally comes on. Well, Ward, I can always count on you, Ward. Hi, thank you. Yes, I did have a lovely birthday. It was low key and simple. Excuse me here. I could talk better when I have some water. It was low key, but that's okay because I just figured I'm going to spread my birthday out over the month. I thought this is a chance to treat myself to some things I normally wouldn't do. Go out to a nice restaurant or two, go see an extra concert or two, go to the Hollywood Bowl, go see a play. So I bought a few tickets for myself for some things, and really I'll be celebrating throughout the month. It was a big birthday. And I thought, why put all that pressure on myself to have to do all that in one day? Probably many of you find that when you're doing a birthday, you have a lot of well-meaning people who want to send you texts, they want to write to you, emails, they want to leave you phone messages, and then I hate to use the word obligation, but I do feel obligated to get back to people, to answer all of this. And it ends up taking up a lot of the day, ironically. It reminds me, I was talking with a dear friend of mine who just lost his spouse recently. And he was saying that he appreciates all the love, but he just needs to be left alone. He doesn't want to talk about this right now because it just brings up a lot of pain, as well-intentioned as people are. Or sometimes he just needs to be in a meditative state alone. And I said, I fully get that. I remember the day my mother died. No, it's the day after my mother died. Wonderful, well-meaning people, lots of love coming my way. But I'll never forget that day. I think I got up about 8 a.m. I was there in boxer shorts and a t-shirt and a bathrobe. Phone rang. Then it rang again and again. It was just call after call after call after call. People giving their condolences, their well wishes, wanting to know about my mother. Well, before I knew it, it was almost 9 o'clock at night. I had still not even gotten dressed. I had been there all day just taking calls from people. And frankly, it was a day when I really wanted to be alone and be contemplative. But, it is what it is. And I see more people coming in. Yeah, War, yes, I am having a birthday month. People have done week-longs, but I decided this year a birthday month. And it was lovely last week. And hi, Goddess Val. Hello from West Palm Beach. Oh, you're having internet issues and cable troubles. I'm so sorry. I hate that. I don't have my cable TV anymore. Because, well, first of all, I'm not a big TV watcher like I used to be, but I like streaming services, Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, Peacock. Oh my God, I have way too many streaming services, but I decided to do that instead of cable. But when you have streaming services, you're dependent on your internet. And I can't tell you how many times I've wanted to sit down and watch a movie on Netflix and my frigging internet is off, or it's cutting in and out. So I hope you get that resolved. But God is vow, I hope at least your air conditioning is still working, your electricity is holding out, because I know how hot and muggy it gets where you are. Let's see, where's some other comments here. Where'd you had net, quote unquote, net issues at work today, and you need your work in the hospital? Well, it's like me. I need internet just to do what I'm doing right now. Uh, the show I do with Dr. Whimsy Anderson on Tuesdays, Taco Tuesdays, which is much bigger than this. We actually have several thousand subscribers there, and that's part of how I make my living. As part of my work with Dr. Whimsy, and you better believe I need my internet. And I think there have been, I can't remember, I think at least once or twice it's happened where I couldn't participate on the show. My internet wasn't cooperating. And also when I'm, booking appointments for her clients, I need my internet there. I use my internet for research. So yeah, we're all dependent on it right now. I had a bummer last week. My phone service went out. Only that was my damn fault. I honestly thought I had paid my bill. I think we've all had that happen to us, where somehow we neglected to pay our bill, and we wake up one morning and find we have no phone service. I'm like, what the hell? So we need our technology. But God is found. I'm glad your air conditioning is working. I have mine on right now. Our heat wave is largely subsided here in LA, but it is coming back later in the week. I'm very heat sensitive. You might hear just below me here, I have a fan blowing at my feet. I've tried to do these shows without the fan, and then I start sweating on camera, and it doesn't look good. So it's a dilemma, but I hope it's not too much of a distraction. Hey, Drops of Jupiter. I love your name. Hi. Drops of Jupiter. I'm sure she'll be joining us later. My good friend Joyce Petrus, who is a fabulous astrologer, a numerologist, and she was telling me that for Cancers, myself, that's my zodiac sign, Jupiter is moving into my sign, and it's supposed to be incredibly expansive as far as career and opportunities. I'm going to wait to see if that happens. It's supposed to be a good year for people of my zodiac sign, but I'm of the I'll believe it when I see it school. But I do believe in astrology. A lot of people put it down. I have one friend says, I don't believe in that bullshit. I don't believe in that. No, but I've seen too much evidence that supports that it does, and it's looking encouraging. So I'm counting on it, because I have a lot of dreams. I have a lot of things still that I want very much to do. And I had a big milestone birthday last Tuesday. And, this is not to be fatalistic or anything, because I certainly plan to be here for quite a long time. I'm healthy and strong, and longevity does run in my family. But I think when you do reach this milestone age, it's hard not to think about one's mortality. The notion that time is running out. I'm thinking of that soap opera, what was it, Days of Our Lives, like sands through the hourglass, so are the days of our lives. You know what? It's almost like that. It's like, yeah, that sand is running out, and there's a lot of projects. The screenplay I want to sell, the book I want to sell, the art projects, the paintings I want to do, the performance pieces, the YouTube shows. I can go on and on and on. My head is constantly filled with activities, things that I want to do, and I have been doing them. But I have felt especially driven this time of my life. It's like now or never. It's prime time. This is, maybe I'll live another 40, 50 years. Hey, Chris, thanks for joining. I may be here another 40 or 50 years, but the fact is I am in the third act of this play of my life. And the third act typically is where, you know, the climax of the play happens. It's where it gets really exciting. Or if it's a musical, that's where you have the big production finale and you come out and roses are thrown at you and the audience stands and cheers. Well, we'll see how that plays out. But this is the third act, and I am finding myself getting a lot more aggressive about pursuing my various goals. I mean, you should have seen me today. I had one notebook for Whimsy's phone calls. I had another notebook for uh, Italian. I'm not doing so well with that. I don't have a gift for learning languages, but I'm taking another stab at that. I'm working on drawing right now. Show it. This is about 70% through, but P.T. Barnum, I'm working on that right now. I am also just putting my drawing back here so it doesn't get messed up. You know, Dr. Whimsy show tomorrow. Once a month, we do an author interview, you know, a kind of a book club, we call it. And I'm in the middle of this book right now. I've got to have it all read by tomorrow's show tomorrow. I've got to formulate questions. So on my little laptop desk here, I had all these things going on at the same time. Plus, with Dr. Whimsy's show, I have to be well versed in current events. Rather than doing a crash course on Tuesday, I've learned to start a few days earlier. I finally got a little smart about that. So while I was doing all this, I also had podcasts, news podcasts on my speaker, my Bluetooth speaker. I was listening to Heather Cox Richardson, David Pakman, Mary Trump, Rachel Maddow. I don't know how my brain is comprehending all this, but it's at my age, it's still working quite well. I have to laugh about it. Yes, Ward, a sucker born every minute. P.T. Barnum's most famous line. Wait, I just want putting this back. I don't want my drawing to get messed up. I should have thought of that before I pulled it out on the air here. I have to be extra careful because, as you all know by now, I have this very inquisitive Siamese cat named Sasha, who loves to get in on my stuff. And anybody who is an artist and has a cat understands the dilemmas. I can never leave glasses of water out, paintbrushes, paints, pencils, anything. I can't leave that stuff out because Sasha will get into it and destroy it. I can't leave my artwork laying out. I have to be sure I put it in a protective case. I just do all this out of habit now, but that comes with the territory to have our beloved little felines. We love them, and yet, they can drive us crazy. So because this is one of those seat of my pants shows once again, because I was working right up until 5 minutes after 5 o'clock, and then I had to just drop everything and log on here, set my light up and everything, try to fix my hair a little bit and come on. I haven't really prepared too many topics, but I've learned with the show just to go with the flow, and often you guys give me great questions and give me things to talk about. What was that? Ward said, imagine what would happen if I painted in catnip. Oh, God forbid. No, that wouldn't be. I don't think that would work out too well. But, you know, I did, while I had all these notebooks laid out here with all these multitasking projects, I did jot down a few ideas and things to talk about. You know, last week was my birthday. My dear friend Anastasia came over. We celebrated 2 days after my birthday. And by the way, thank you all for going over to her live stream, which she does on her channel called The Sacred Spears. And she's going to be on 7 o'clock Pacific time. And of course, that is 10 o'clock Eastern. And a lot of you have been very kind to check her out. And I know it means the world to her. She went through, and she's very open about this, she went through a rough period where she lost her job and her boyfriend all in the course of 5 days It was a devastating period for her, but she has picked herself up and decided to throw herself into a lot of her dreams and endeavors. You know, she's a wonderful artist. She's a writer. She's a singer. Uh, she's if you've watched her, you can see she's fabulous when she does her YouTube show. She has a lot of gifts. She's a wonderful orator, storyteller, extremely intelligent woman. So I really respect the fact that she picked herself up and started doing some things like this. And I had actually suggested to her, you know, she's been on this show a few times. You've seen her. And I said, why don't you do your own live stream? No expectations, just have fun with it because you're such a gifted talker and you have so much to say. And well, she's doing this Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So she'll be on after me. And I know she'd appreciate it if you come over to her channel. And Drops of Jupiter. Did I ever paint Sasha? No, I did paint. I've got to preface this with the fact I have had nothing but Siamese cats since I was 11 years old. It's the only breed I've ever had. I love Siamese cats. I love them for their intelligence. I love them for their eccentricity, their quirkiness. I love their beauty. So anyway, my last Siamese cat, Charlie, I painted him, but I haven't painted Sasha yet. I guess because Sasha looks too much like him, but I should. I really should. Of course, I'd have to do it from a photograph because she is not about to hold still for me. I can barely get her to hold still for even a photograph. In fact, there, you know, I don't know if you know this, but there's a trick for photographing cats. Put your phone on video mode. Take video, you know, and they're going all over the place. And then take it and put it on, you know, in the bottom where you've got all the freeze frame images. Scroll through the freeze frames and just pick still pictures from that. That's the trick to photographing a cat that's worked well for me. But I was trying to think. Yeah. Okay, this gets back to what I was going to say. Anastasia came over here. She brought a cake, gave me a lovely present, one of her beautiful paintings. And she had never seen Barbra Streisand's movie Funny Girl. You know, the Barbra Streisand won a Best Actress Oscar for the film. I think she's extraordinary. I think it's the quintessential Streisand movie. I have had friends over the decades who go, I can't stand her. I hate Barbra Streisand. No, I don't want to listen to her. I don't want to watch her. I'll say, would you please just check this one movie out? Just give her a chance. Watch Funny Girl. I have converted people. I had a friend, that friend I was just saying, I can't stand her. I hate her. He was so enamored with her, he wanted to buy his first Barbra Streisand album the next day. He loved her. But anyway, Anastasia had never seen Funny Girl, so I showed it to her. And she made a wonderful observation, having never seen it before. And she said, I'm not really a Streisand fan, but, you know, I acknowledge her extraordinary talent. But what I do see in this performance more than anything is the heart, the great, great heart. You know, Barbra Streisand has this reputation of being kind of a tough bitch and difficult, but what you saw in that movie was her soul. You saw the most beautiful, giving, generous heart. And it just had me thinking so much about how any of us, when we're doing our work, when we're doing our own, hi Joyce, thanks for joining, when we're doing our art, when we're doing our writing, or if you're an accountant or a lawyer, or a doctor, a nurse, you're a school teacher, these are all our arts. And it's just so important to put our heart into anything we're doing, to put our love into it. And it's what makes it irresistible and contagious to others. You know, it's what draws people. It's what attracts people. I think that's one of the reasons I've loved that movie so much. I never quite put my finger on it. And I should have known better because I'm so big about putting love into what you do. But I guess I've watched Barbara so many times in it, but Anastasia summed it up so nicely. All the heart in that performance. That's why it's endured. You know, here it is more than, let's see, that movie is like 57 years old now, and it's a classic. And it was her very first film. and she won the Best Actress Oscar. Now, I know she shared the Oscar. It was a tie that year. It's the only tie in the history of the Academy Awards for Best Actress. It happened once for Best Actor in the 1930s, but this was extraordinary because in those days in the 30s, I think if you came within like 3, 4, 5 votes of each other, it was considered a tie. The rules were made much stricter, and in 1969, that was the year. It was the movie were 1968, but it was the 1969 Oscars. The rules had been made much stricter. It had to be a precise, even tie. So Katharine Hepburn and Barbara Streisand got the exact same number of votes. And I always think that's the one of the few years the Academy Awards really got it right. Because how many times have we seen years where somebody wins and we think, yeah, but that other actor, they were just as good. They should have won also. It was almost like choosing between apples and oranges when you had more than one extraordinary performance. This was the one time you had two, because it was Katharine Hepburn in The Lion in Winter, this in Streisand in Funny Girl. You had two just incredible performances, classic performances to this day that are classics. And they both got honored that year. They both got Oscars. So I think that's special. And I should get to my comments here. Lord, if Miss Streisand had to tie with anyone, Miss Hepburn was quite a pairing. Yes. In fact, there was a lovely note that Barbara Streisand wrote to Katharine Hepburn, and it still exists. Apparently, Hepburn was touched. She kept the note from Streisand because I think it's on display in a museum somewhere. But Barbara wrote her saying to that effect that I'm paraphrasing horribly, but I think she said something to the effect of how honored I am to be in such magnificent company as you. And I understand Barbara also sent her roses. And hi, Andy. Thank you for joining. And Sabrina. Hi, Sabrina. Chuck, I know you probably thought of this, but the artists I know always had a studio, even if it was just a room in their living quarters, so they could shut the door. Not worry about all that. Well, Sabrina, I would happily do that, but I live in a studio apartment. That's not possible for me. I mean, it's a nice studio. It's a 1941 apartment building. I have a fireplace. I have French windows. I have crown molding. It doesn't feel like a studio. Like I've got a separate kitchen area, nice hallway, bathroom, and the living room, but I don't have a place for a studio. Believe me, Sabrina, if I could do that, I would do it. So I have no choice but to work here. And that's why I have to be so careful with my cat. I can't leave anything out, but one day, I hope I can have that. But I make it work. Let's see here. Everybody sing hello to each other. Valerie, yes, Barbara has always been a class act. And, and I was talking about what great heart Barbara Streisand has, how we both were aware of that watching Funny Girl. I reminded Anastasia that Barbara Streisand is a great philanthropist. She has given away many millions of dollars to, various charities, causes. Barbara's a lot like Elizabeth Taylor. She was like this also, where she would read the newspaper. She would see somebody in need. Like I understand one day Elizabeth Taylor saw in the news there was this little town somewhere that needed a school bus, and there was another community that needed an ambulance. Elizabeth FedExed a check to them. Whatever it was they needed. That's the way Barbara is. She does the same thing. And these are people who often give quietly and privately. Ward, you have to go. Well, anyway, thank you for joining in. I really appreciate you very much. And Joyce, I was just mentioning what a gifted astrologer you are. And I was saying about how Jupiter has moved into my sign of Cancer, and it's supposed to be bringing all these great things, right? Let's hope so anyway. Yeah, so I made a little note here, maybe mention Streisand. One of the things one of my favorite YouTube clips, and you might have seen this when it originally happened. I did. When Rosie O'Donnell used to have her daytime talk show back in the 90s, and she had Barbara Streisand as her guest. And Rosie O'Donnell had idolized Barbara Streisand since she was a little girl. And her late mother used to play Barbara's records. And so Rosie associated Barbara Streisand with her beloved late mother. And when she had Barbara Streisand on her show, she purposely did not meet her beforehand. As many times, a talk show host will meet with the stars beforehand in the dressing room and, hey, have a good show, all that kind of stuff. Rosie wanted to meet Barbara Streisand on camera. She wanted it to be authentic when she met her. And Rosie burst into tears when she saw Barbara. She couldn't help herself. She just started crying. And then Barbara started crying, started wiping the tears from Rosie's face. And Rosie said, I'm paraphrasing it, but you got me through a dark childhood and you gave me hope to keep going. And I just can't tell you how much that meant to me. And it was a beautiful moment, really beautiful. And it's there on YouTube. It's easy to look up. I highly recommend it. And of course, our dear Rosie has been in the news. And I'm sure Whimsy and I will be talking about this tomorrow because that's what we do on that show. So I try so hard to keep politics and stuff off of this show. But Rosie has moved to Ireland. She had to leave the country. She feared for her personal safety, more so for her 12-year-old daughter. And let's just say that a certain someone wants to take away her citizenship. He cannot do that, but it's just the fact that he's making the effort, and she made a very eloquent response back. But I better steer clear of that because I've learned my lesson not to talk about politics on here. I don't want to offend people. I want this show to be something for everyone. I want it to be fun. But anyway, where's some of the comments here? Oh, Valerie, you saw that show too. You sobbed. Isn't that just... Again, such a beautiful, heartfelt moment. Very sincere. And I'm so glad that that Rosie, pardon me, I'm just going to get some water here. This is where I got to be careful. I don't electrocute myself because I have a fan underneath me. Now, that would make for an interesting live stream, wouldn't it? But that's not a show I want to do. But yeah, she wanted to keep that moment very authentic and pure. Hey, Andy, thank you for joining. And that's the kind of thing I love. And I just realized I gave another product endorsement here. We're not supposed to do that on YouTube. But I keep, for some reason, forgetting and grabbing this mug. And not to impugn the corporation, but I have my own home espresso machine, and I can make lattes, I can make cappuccinos, I can make espresso shots, I can make espresso martinis. I can make about any coffee drink I want on my own, even though there is a Starbucks with, said it out loud, even though there is one of those places a 5-minute walk around the corner from where I live. I still like the decadence, the luxury of being able to do that on my own. And I hear an ambulance outside. I wonder what's going on. Hey, that's what it's like when you live in a place like LA. Oh, thirsty today. I think it's just all this heat, this humidity we've been having. Well, I don't know if we've been having humidity, but it feels like it. I'm very heat sensitive. Let's see here. My comments are moving. Oh, Joyce, you love lattes. Joyce, do you make your own also? When you've got the right kind of machinery, it's easy to do. Pardon me, my contact lens there. Sorry, my eye. I've had to be careful with my finances since the pandemic 5 years ago, and I had to change my lifestyle. I have a lot more freedom in my life right now, and the freedom to pursue the things I love, but it has meant being more frugal, which is not a bad thing. But thanks to Amazon and their Payment plans where you don't have to pay interest. You can divide your payments out over 4 or 5 months. I treated myself to a real espresso machine last December. Now, I'm not talking about one of those Nespresso things, the capsules. I'm talking about a real espresso machine. You got to grind your beans and everything in your portafilter and temp it and put it in there. But I love doing it. And it has a really good wand on it, steam wand for frothing the milk. And I was amazed how well it works, because many years ago, I had one of those little countertop, this little espresso maker thing, and it had the steam wand on it, and it would not froth milk worth a damn. No matter what I did, I could never get the milk to foam and froth like it was supposed to. I even went to a coffee shop and I said, I'll pay you to teach me. Please, may I come behind the counter, and will you please teach me how to froth milk? And even after that, it still didn't work. When I realized, no, I just had crap machinery. Now that I have this nice espresso machine, oh boy, I have fun. I have fun making a cappuccino or a latte every day. And I always wondered in the beginning, what's the difference between a cappuccino and a latte? Basically, a cappuccino just has a little more foam on top. That's the main difference. And also in Italy, you're not supposed to drink them after 11 a.m. Part of the culture there. Oh, Joyce, you used to make them. Your son gave you a machine, but you still have it. Let's see what here. Pardon me, I need to go back on some comments here. Andy, can I bring up a name, Chuck? I was just watching one of his movies. Sure, bring him up. Maybe you did. Let's see. Mega Man and Charlton Heston, and also an all-star cast. I don't know who a Mega Man is, but Charlton Heston, I'm initially thinking, do you mean Earthquake? Which had Ava Gardner and who else was in that? I forget. Genevieve Bujold. A lot of people who were big stars at the time who are not such big stars now, but Ava Gardner and Charlton Heston still have their star quality. I'm trying to think of some other all-star films he might have done. Let's see. Joyce, yours needs to be decalcified. Actually, Joyce, it's very easy to do. You can order it. It's a liquid you order. I get mine on Amazon, and you have to do it about once a month. I'm sure you know this. You just pour a certain part of it to a certain amount of water in your water tank, and there's a button you hit, and it goes through and all. And it's not too hard to do. So Andy, you're a Mega Man, Planet of the Apes, 10 Commandments. Are you talking about Charlton Heston? I know he was in. I'm not familiar with the Mega Man, but I know Planet of the Apes and 10 Commandments. Of course, he starred in those. Let's see. What's this, Joyce? It's not a latte. It's not a latto. It's a latto. Yeah. So anyway, Andy, in what respect did you want to talk about Charlton Heston? I don't know if I know a whole lot about him. I'll try. I'll try anything I can think of. I know he won the Academy Award for Ben-Hur, Best Actor Oscar, and he had quite a career for a while. And his career even lasted well into the 1970s. The Mega Man, it's about him being the only man alive on Earth. That sounds almost a little bit like Planet of the Apes when the astronauts land. And I think they're the only two humans, I think. And still think of that image of the Statue of Liberty buried in the sand up to the chest and the ocean. And Joyce, I didn't know I needed to do that. By the time I figured out it was really clogged. I don't know. Joyce, you might do a little Google search on there, or even go to Chat GPT or something and say, ask, what do I do when my espresso machine is really clogged up, and how do I rescue it? I bet you there are things you can do. Andy, what about Roddy McDowell? Well, I know that Roddy McDowell he had a lot of big female star friends. I mean, very diverse. And I understand one of the reasons was because he was a very good keeper of secrets. So people trusted him to confide in him. I know he was extremely close to Elizabeth Taylor, but at the same time, he was also very close with Joan Rivers. He was close with Carol Burnett, Dolly Parton. I think he knew Mae West. I mean, it was just an incredible array of fascinating women that he was friends with. And I was talking to someone. I'll protect his privacy. He's a celebrity, but I better not give his name because I don't have his permission to talk about things. But I don't think he'd mind me saying this much, that he knew Roddy McDowell, and there was a period where Roddy McDowell was a bit of an outcast in Hollywood because he was a big film buff, a big enthusiast, and he was a collector of 35 millimeter film, nitrate film, that type of thing. And he got raided. I could have my facts wrong here, but I think he got raided by the FBI because he had a lot of copyrighted films that were not supposed to be in private hands. And he was in a lot of trouble for that. And Hollywood can be a little bit of a cliquish town, and people don't want to be associated. People who are famous don't want to be associated with other people who might have a bad association or scandal. So he found a lot of friends shunning him and not being there for him. And this person I'm talking about also knew Joan Rivers very well. And he said Joan Rivers was extremely loyal to her friends, and she was very loyal to Roddy McDowell. And she made a point of being seen with him in public, going out to restaurants with him where other stars would be around, making a show of the fact, I have not turned my back on my friend, and you shouldn't either. And that apparently helped to rehabilitate his image and put him in much better standing. But I know that about Roddy McDowell. I'm trying to think other things. He and Carol Burnett were very close. He was on the Carol Burnett show a number of times. Marvelous comedic actor, and that her show gave a lot of actors like him a chance to show that side of themselves. And whenever Carol Burnett would go over to his home, there was this magnificent high back antique chair that she always loved to sit in. And in his will, he left the chair to Carol. And she has it to this day. Let's see what some of the comments here. Anthony Zerb. I don't know a huge amount about him. I think Anthony Zerb, wasn't he on? I could be wrong. Wasn't he on a television show with William Shatner where they played police officers? I think back in the 80s. And you said only name I can think of, but I could be wrong, is Serge Bromberg. I don't know that name, Andy. Maybe you could tell me a little more about that. Joyce, you were asking the solution that I use. Well, I tell you what, after the sometime tonight after the show, I can't promise right away because Anastasia's show is coming up, but I'll send you the Amazon listing. I'll text it to you, what I use. I don't know how it would work for you. I know about vinegar and water. I know that's like the traditional way to clean out coffee machines and so forth. But because you have a more serious clog, I don't know if this would be strong enough. But I know when I got my espresso machine, it said to almost religiously every 30 days clean it out. Because the machine was so darn expensive, I am doing that. But I'll send that to you, but maybe also just Google search, because you can find some surprisingly good answers to things. And there must be a way you can clean that out. So maybe next time we talk together, we can have our lattes at the same time. Let's see, Andy, Joyce, did you see the Carol episode where Carol and Roddy did a duet together? Oh, yes, and Roddy sang in the Monkey Mask. Yeah, I remember that. In fact, those Carol Burnett shows are A lot of them are on YouTube now in their entirety, or you can get them on DVD. And I still remember that one where he was quite a sport. It took over 3.5 hours to put that ape makeup on, and he went through all of that just so he could come out for that one number where they sang together, and it was really adorable, and I guess also Roddy was probably so used to it. I know a lot of actors, when they have to do that prosthetic makeup where they have to be in the makeup chair for hours and hours and hours, they'll just use that as time to sleep, take a nice long nap. Um, One of my very, very favorite movies. It's a French film, La Vie en Rose, about the life of Edith Piaf. Marianne Cotillard won the Best Actress Oscar for it. It's the only time an actress has won for a French language film. She's extraordinary. But anyway, when she played Edith Piaf in the latter years, she had to go through 5 hours of makeup. She had to shave her hairline back about 2 inches because Edith had that very high forehead, had to shave off her eyebrows, and she had to lay back and have all this prosthetic put on her. And she said what she would do is purposely just stay up all night, show up in the morning, and just sleep in the makeup chair while they made her up. And then she'd wake up and she'd be Edith Piaf. Yeah, I saw that, Andy, about Richard Dreyfuss. I just kind of half paid attention to that. I think it's something acute. I think he's got some sort of uh, lung infection, something viral. I think so. I think he's going to be okay. Um, Richard Dreyfuss, he's interesting. I don't know if you know of these Hollywood autograph shows that tour the country, where a lot of stars will appear and sit at a table and sign photos and autographs and memorabilia and meet and greet. And he did one out here, and I wasn't there, but my friend said he was kind of strange, a little too eccentric and out there. I'm not sure what's going on with him. I know he made the news a while back, and I forget what it was, but he kind of went off the rails with some political comments, and it since has been forgotten about, and I've even forgotten about it. But I hope he's okay. He's a good actor. His career started out so big in the 70s. Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and and Jaws, of course. Jaws, that's the film I was trying to think of, because Jaws is having its 50th anniversary right now. In fact, just recently at the Hollywood Bowl, they did a Jaws night where they had a big movie screen lowered, and they were playing the movie Jaws, but they had the LA Philharmonic, which is just magnificent. The acoustics at the Hollywood Bowl are so good. And so the orchestra was playing the score of the movie as the movie played. And it would have been worth it just to have been there for the dun, 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 the opening. That has got to be one of the most iconic themes that as the shark is approaching. They use that over and over. But Richard Dreyfuss had that. And then, of course, he had The Goodbye Girl, for which he won the Best Actor Oscar. I mean, he was like red hot his career. It was like one smash hit after another. And I think it was only like 29 or 30 when he won the Best Actor Oscar. And he was, until Adrian Brody, he was the youngest ever to win the Best Actor Oscar. And then it all just kind of disintegrated and fell apart. And I understand it was a variety of reasons. He had a serious cocaine problem. And he also, unfortunately, got very full of himself. His ego got the better of him, from what I've heard, because he realized how big he was. And he had that Best Actor Oscar. And he started just getting arrogant and difficult to work with. And finally, a lot of people didn't want to work with him anymore. And that does happen in this town. Not to in any way put down the late Val Kilmer. I don't want to do that, and he went that man went through a lot with his throat cancer and so forth. And I saw a documentary a few years ago. He'd been through some really tough times, but I remember my acting teacher, Dee Wallace, talking to us about, she was very practical, being an A-list actress herself who had worked on film sets, worked in major films, worked with major directors. She was always trying to teach us the practicalities of the business. And she was telling us things about, it's common sense, but yeah, know your lines, be always prepared, do your homework, be on time, because when you're not on time, you don't know your lines, you're not prepared, that holds up the production, and in turn that costs the producers a lot of money. And that is like an unforgivable sin. She said, maybe if you're a big A-list star, you're someone like Tom Cruise or something like that, Julia Roberts, whatever, you can maybe get away with it because you're valuable to them. They know they're going to make a lot of money with you. But when you're not making money for them anymore, that's where you're in trouble. And she said, have you ever noticed you don't see Val Kilmer anymore in the movies? Do you ever wonder what happened to him? And she said he got very full of himself. He got very arrogant. He started to become very difficult, not showing up on the sets on time, so forth, so forth. And it finally got to the point where he wasn't such a valuable star anymore, and producers no longer wanted to work with him. Same thing happened to Katherine Heigl. Remember her? Katherine Heigl used to be on Grey's Anatomy. And for maybe 2 years or so, she had 2 or 3 big hit films. She was on her way to becoming a big movie star. And the stories are that she got full of herself. She started getting egotistical. She started getting overly demanding. And producers started saying, you're not worth it. We'll hire somebody else. And she basically killed her film career. Now she's doing cat litter commercials, not to envy that, but you have to watch yourself. And so it happens. It does happen to people in this town. If you ever wonder when a star seems to have faded or disappeared from the screen, that's often a suspect reason. Andy, you're alone in chat now? I didn't even notice people had gone. I don't know. Where is everybody? Say hello. Maybe I need to talk about another topic here. Oh, God, it's Val. There you are. Hey, let's see. Jarvis was on the TCM cruise 2015. He introduced Jaws and the last night of the cruise. They were heading back to Port Canaveral. Did you get to meet him, talk with him? How was he? Hey, Valerie, I'm glad you're here. Yeah, maybe you have your own perspective on Richard Dreyfuss. A movie I loved of his. It was one of his later life films. I think he got an Oscar nomination for it. It was one where he played the high school music teacher. What was it? Mr. Holland's Opus, I think it was called. I just love that, because we can all think about teachers we've had who greatly inspired our lives. And that was the basic gist of this story. And, while I'm talking about prosthetic makeup, actors sitting in a chair for hours and hours, they did a reverse on that with Richard Dreyfuss, because Richard Dreyfuss was, I hate to use the word elderly, but let's just say in his maturity, he was older. I think he might have been well into his 60s at the time. And the story begins where his character is a young man. He's like a young man, I guess, in his 20s, his first year of teaching. So they had to do the reverse. They had to de-age Richard Dreyfuss. And he had to spend hours, literally hours in the makeup chair, all the little tricks, I guess, taping his skin back and putting special foundation on his face and stuff. But they made him look believably like a young man. And this movie was made before a lot of our current CGI. Now you can de-age a person through digital effects. In those days, they had to do it for real with makeup. And so what they did, they start the movie with him as a young man. And again, it's all in reverse with the makeup. As the character gets older, they just start taking the makeup off of him, till finally at the end of the movie, it's Richard Dreyfuss with no makeup on, just as he looked for real, playing the character on the day he's retiring. So it goes both ways. Oh yeah, that was good as Doc Holliday. Yeah, what was that movie? Was that Tombstone? That was the movie. I saw that a long, long time ago. But I'm trying to think what else here was I going to talk about today. I told you this was a seat of my pants show because I had to work right up until minutes before I went on, and I'm multitasking all over the place. So I didn't get a chance to plan any topics. But one thing what's that? Let me see here. Oh yeah, Andy. They did that with Harrison Ford in the last Indiana Jones movie, and I think they did a surprisingly good job, because it was the opening prologue where it was the young Indiana Jones as he looked when the series first started back in 1981, and he looked believable. And I understand the way they do that. They have to put all these little dots, little marker places all over the actor's face, and it's I forget all the digital effects that go into it. They did the same thing with Robert De Niro in The Irishman, and they had to make Robert De Niro I think he was like 77 at the time, and they had to make him look like he was in his 30s again. But it worked. It worked, and the technology is only going to get better and better. And I can't help but think a lot of aging stars who want to keep their careers going are going to be employing the use of this technology as it gets better and better. Let's see here. Andy, how's Sasha tonight? Well, she's doing good. She's off sleeping somewhere. I never know what that cat's going to do. You've seen her run across the back of the couch, jump up. Sometimes I have to grab her and hold her purposely so she won't jump on the keyboard of this laptop and disconnect the whole show. She's come close to doing that several times, and especially with Whimsy's show. People think I'm just, oh, look at my cute little cat. No, I'm trying to hold the little beast down. But I love her. I love her. She's an inquisitive little Siamese, always wanting to get into things. Let's see, Goddess Val, Anne Blythe, Shirley Jones, and Tab Hunter were all on the same cruise. How interesting. And of course, Anne Blythe, I think she's about 90. I think she's 96 now. Shirley Jones, I believe, is 90 or 91. Of course, Tab Hunter has passed on. My late friend, the actress Evelyn Keyes, was very close with Tab Hunter, adored him. And let's see, a friend of mine was on a train coming back from Santa Barbara to LA, and Shirley Jones was on there, and she got to sit near her and talk with her for a while. It's a very, very sweet lady. Anne Blythe, I think, would be fun to talk to because of Joan Crawford and the film Mildred Pierce. And of course, Anne Blythe played Mildred's evil daughter, Vida. Oh, it's fun to watch that movie. But Anne Blythe and Joan Crawford were actually very close friends in real life. And hair sticking up here. Sorry about that. Got the fan going. It was Anne Blythe who brought Joan Crawford's Oscar to her. Joan Crawford, there are differing versions of the story. Joan's official story was she was running 103 or 104 degree temperature, and she was deathly ill with the flu, and she was bedridden. And so after the Oscars, Anne Blythe accepted the Oscar and got in the car and rushed over to her home in Brentwood. And there are all these photos. You can Google search them. Tons of photos of Joan Crawford in bed wearing this frilly little nightgown, and she's all made up and her hair is done. She does not look sick. And Anne Blythe is presenting her Oscar to her. But it'd be fun to talk to Anne Blythe about that. But the reason I say it's a little apocryphal, because I think somewhere Joan Crawford admitted that she really was not sick. The truth was she was scared to death of going to the Oscars and losing and being humiliated. So she pretended to be sick. And then when she found out on the radio that she had won, she had her hairdresser and her makeup artist boom, at the speed of light, get to her home and get her fixed up and ready for the photographers. And she put on like a real fancy bed jacket and everything. And you see the pictures. The woman was not sick. At least not physically sick anyway. But no, I love Joan Crawford. I'm not going to put her down. Joyce, the last movie I saw in a theater was Barbie. I went with my sister-in-law when I was visiting my brother in Gig Harbor, Washington. Whimsy and I saw Barbie together. In fact, we like to joke about it because it was when she was here in LA visiting me. We went for Korean barbecue for dinner, and then we went across the street to see the Barbie movie. So we had barbecue and Barbie, but we liked it a lot. Let me see here. I'm trying to find some other comments here. Have I ever appeared on screen? Yes, I have. But I mean, appeared is about as close as it gets. I got to think. I've done lots of little bit things. Biggest thing I ever did was 2 Days on General Hospital a number of years ago. But I've had little parts, like a line here, walk-ons, some things like that. Mostly independent films. There was an HBO series. I had a lot more to do on that. It was a pilot. They shot 5 episodes of this no, excuse me. Pardon me. I got that wrong. It was 1 episode. It was an hour-long pilot, but it was shot over 5 days. Get your facts straight, Chuck. But I was in a lot of scenes of that. I'm trying to think what it was called. Jonathan Silverman was in it. And Ed Begley Jr., I think it was called Lloyd, What Happened. It never aired. Never. I never saw the light of day. So that was probably my best chance to be seen. But no, I don't have anything of great note. I wish I did. But I keep hoping. I keep putting my dreams out there to the universe. I'd love to have a big part in a film, or even a medium-sized part in a film, or even just a supporting role in a film. I'd be happy. I love the movies. I love acting. Andy, you don't go? Can't you find anybody to go with you? Well, Andy, go by yourself. I go by myself all the time to the movies. I do a lot of things by myself. I went a week and a half ago. I went to the Hollywood Bowl by myself for the 4th of July. I have no problem with that. I guess I enjoy my company, but I went to the Hollywood Bowl. I brought a bottle of wine, brought a little picnic. I was just fine. Had a great time. Try it. You may surprise yourself. Just enjoy your own company. Andy, you like karaoke? No, that's something I haven't done so much of. Barbie and the Barbie. Oh, Andy, I'm sure people want to be with you. Or again, just love yourself. Love your own company. I find that when we do that, we magnetize other people to us naturally. Maybe just, give that a try. What was this? Andy sounds like Don Rickles having shows that never made it to air. Well, I think I did hear that he had shot a number of pilots that never went to air. But there are apparently many things that get filmed like that never see the light of the day. And this was, I never saw it, but when I was on the set, it looked like a good show. And it looked like it had a good cast, had beautiful sets. Very good production values. We shot that at Warner Brothers. And we did it on the adjacent Warner Brothers ranch. It's where they used to film a lot of TV shows like Hazel, I Dream of Jeannie, The Partridge Family, Bewitched. And unfortunately, a lot of those facades for houses have now been torn down. They were torn down about a year ago. But when I was working on that pilot, during one of my lunch breaks, I walked around on the back lot and I immediately recognized the house for Bewitched. It looked exactly. This was, I think, 1999. It still looked exactly like it looked back in the 1960s when they did the show. But unfortunately, it's been torn down. And a lot of people were fighting that. There was even some unnamed celebrity or a millionaire who offered to purchase the sets, the facades of the houses, and paid to have them moved to another location so they could be saved and so they could be around for people to come and look at them and enjoy them. And Warner Brothers said no. And I don't know why. Why? To me, that would have been a perfect solution. They didn't want them anymore. They were just going to tear them down. Such is life, such is Hollywood. What can I say? Oh, what was this? Joyce, my next door neighbor in Tucson was a good friend. We liked going Friday. All you can eat fish and chips. She had chicken tenders. Fish and chips. You know, the only time I ever eat fish and only time I eat fish and chips is when I am in England. It's the thing to do. And you know, Joyce, you know how they wrap it up in newspaper? I don't know if you ever encountered that, but I found that a lot when I'd go to little stands for fish and chips. And of course, chips here in America don't mean the same thing. There in England, chips mean potatoes. Real potatoes. Yeah, Valerie, it was a huge deal, and they switched Darren's on Bewitched. Someone who was really unhappy about that was Agnes Moorehead, because she and Dick York were extremely close friends. It's always interesting. They played the biggest adversaries, you know, Darren and Endora, my mother-in-law, the witch, that whole thing. They played it so well. But in real life, the two of them loved each other. They were extremely close. They used to go to baseball games together. And after Dick York became too ill to work on the show, but he had a very bad back. And the last day of filming, he had to be taken out on a stretcher. He was in so much excruciating pain, and there was no way he could continue in the role. And the story has it that Agnes Moorehead said, as long as I'm working on the show, I'm giving you half my paycheck. That's the kind of friendship they had. So anyway, when he was replaced, they brought in Dick Sargent. Agnes Moorehead just did not warm up to him. She didn't, I don't know if she was hostile to him or anything, but she was cold and distant to him for quite a while. She just did not like, she said, I don't like change. I don't like this change. She felt bad for her dear friend being removed from the show, but I understand she and Dick Sargent did form a friendship eventually. But it was strange. Now, some have even said, well, because it was a show about a witch, Samantha just did a little nose turn and turned her husband into another husband. She changed the way Darren looked. Someone tried to pass it off that way. I don't know how you guys feel about that. I always thought Dick York was just born to be Darren. He had the best comic timing. He was very underrated, I thought. He was such a talented comedic actor. And whenever I've watched the shows with Dick Sargent, I always find Dick Sargent bland by comparison. The magic just was not there. And of course, the show kind of limped along for another 3 seasons. And those last 3 seasons of the show, the quality was not really there either. They were running out of ideas. So they were recycling a lot of their old storylines. You can spot that on a number of those episodes, final seasons. And also Elizabeth Montgomery, she wanted to end the show after 5 seasons herself. And the show was still a big hit. So ABC gave her partial ownership in the show as an enticement to stay on. But another reason the show was starting to fall apart, you know, she was married to Bill Asher, who directed a lot of the episodes and also was producer, creator. Their marriage was falling apart. And so that made it increasingly difficult for them to work together. And so it was a variety of reasons why it just, this once great show kind of limped to the end, to its last season. Let's see what's other comments here. Oh, Joyce, you and your friend, you take each other out for your birthdays. Yeah, I have that. Several friends, we do that also. Oh, Joyce, I bet you did have the best fish and chips in Scotland. I love Scotland. I haven't been there more than 30 years, but I adored it. Edinburgh. I used to be able to do the Scottish accent because I stayed there long enough that I started to pick it up. I can't do it now, but I know it would come back to me. And I remember how cold it was because well, I mean, not cold, cold, but I was there in June, close to July, and it was about 45 degrees. I remember I had to have a scarf and a cap and a jacket and all. I was told that was just typical weather there. Yeah, that's yeah. Several you're mentioning about the original Darren and of course Agnes Moorehead's generosity. You know, Agnes Moorehead was a very religious woman. She kept a Bible in her dressing room, and she often between scenes she'd be in her dressing room reading Bible verses. You know, a very different side to her. And Erin Murphy, you know, she and her twin sister alternated. They played the role of Tabitha, and they called her Grandmama in real life. And they said that many times they would sit in her lap in her dressing room and Agnes would read fairy tales to them. They said she's just a lovely lady. And of course, Dick York loved her very much. But, you know, I've always theorized that's why that adversarial relationship works so well, because you always knew subconsciously underneath it that they loved each other. You could just feel that energy was there. Um, that's true with a lot of teamed actors who have to play enemies but get along in real life. There's something about that. It just adds a subtle dimension that makes it work. Tony Randall and Jack Klugman. Jack Klugman wrote a wonderful book about his friendship with Tony Randall. They loved each other in real life. He said we were brothers in real life. When Jack Klugman was ill with throat cancer and lost one of his vocal cords, and you know, for an actor to lose your voice, Jack Klugman said, I would have rather have lost an arm or a leg than to have lost my voice. And he was crying, I'll never act again. And Tony Randall said, yes, you will. Yes, you will. And he said Tony Randall was there every day encouraging him, come on, you can do it. You can do this. You can do this. And Tony helped him to get a vocal coach to help him to strengthen the muscles in his one remaining vocal cord. Now he was kind of left with a voice like this, but at least he had a voice he could act with. And Jack said it was Tony Randall who was just there for him and would not let him give up. And he said anyway, Jack was saying whenever you saw them at each other's throats on the show, fighting bitterly in character, you always knew that love was underneath it. And one of the things they always insisted with the writers, and Jack Klugman, if he didn't find it in the script when they'd sit at the table reading, he'd say, okay, guys, where's the love scene? That's what they called it. They insisted there always be one scene on the show, even if it was 30 seconds, where they were declaring their friendship for each other. They were showing their affection for each other, anything. And that's why he called it the love scene. And they felt that was so essential to keeping the show going. And they were right. And I think that's what Agnes Moorehead and Dick York had. Anyway, what are some other comments here? Did I ever see the movie version of Bewitched? Oh, I hated that movie so much. I thought it was the worst. And I know I'm not the only one to feel that way. And I also know I'm not the only one to go into the movie theater with big expectations. I mean, it sounded great. Nicole Kidman as Samantha, Will Ferrell as Darren, Shirley MacLaine as Endora, Michael Caine as Maurice. I mean, it was an incredible cast. And the movie was so bad. And one of the things I noticed, I thought, okay, this movie is being made, in the 90s, the era of CGI and digital effects. I thought the special effects are going to be incredible in this. They're going to be able to do things they could never do on the TV show. I'll be darned if the special effects on the TV show back in the 60s weren't better. They did them better. And the TV show had a lot more heart. Will Ferrell was badly miscast. They made him just a jerk. He was very unappealing. Nicole, she was adequate. Shirley MacLaine should have by every right should have rocked that role. She should have played the hell out of Endora. She was perfect to play Endora. And it was like she was telephoning in her performance. It was like all she was doing was collecting her paycheck. It was a very lackluster performance. I've talked to so many people, and I've seen comments on social media whenever it comes up. That movie is just universally despised, and they just blew an opportunity, and they did a really weird thing with it. I think it was Nora Ephron, and normally I love her, the things that she did, but she felt the premise, it was too dated. The idea of a husband restricting his wife. No, you can't do witchcraft because I'm the husband and I say so. She felt that was so dated and so sexist. So they did away with that, and they did this thing where it was a show within a show, where it was these actors who were doing a show called Bewitched, and it was just dumb. And I always thought they could have worked around that. Yes, I agree, that is sexist, the idea of a husband mandating what his wife can or cannot do. But I thought, why not play it from the angle of it's Samantha making the choice herself? And by that, I mean, if I had been writing that script, I would have said Samantha loved her husband so much. And in her world, the world of witches and warlocks, they would never accept Darren. And she knew the only way she could ever be with Darren was to be in his world. And to be in his world, she had to give up her witchcraft, or at least hide her witchcraft. Now, to me, that would have been plausible, and it would have come from a place of empowerment on Samantha's part. But they didn't do that. Anyway, enough of my griping about that movie, but it just, yuck. I mean, it could have been so good, and it was not. What was that? I'm looking at some other comments here. Yeah, it was Nora Ephron. Yeah. And Nora Ephron, she has passed on, but she did some wonderful, wonderful things. This was just a misfire. I'm trying to think of her things. I think one of the things was, did Nora Ephron do You've Got Mail, which was the film with Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan, which was quite adorable. Yeah, just like the story of Harry Potter and Muggles were a human married to a wizard. Yeah. I've got to confess something. I've never watched one Harry Potter movie. I've never read any of the books. And I know it's one of those things I need to catch up on, because they're obviously very beloved, and I need to see what I'm missing out on. At least watch one of them, at least. No, what was your post about Paul Lynde? What did you ask about? Oh yeah, Paul Lynde is Uncle Arthur. Yeah, he was funny on the show. I was surprised. I saw recently that Paul Lynde only did 8 episodes of Bewitched, but it seems like he was on many more. And one of my first things I saw that I thought was really funny was, he was Endora's brother, and they were constantly bickering with each other. And there was this one where Endora decided she was going to take over this house next door so she could be near Samantha and Tabitha. I don't know if she cared so much about being near Darren, but anyway, she zapped up this house, and Uncle Arthur zapped the house away, and she zapped the house back, and they were bickering and fighting and saying all these bitchy things to each other. And then along comes Mrs. Kravitz walking down the sidewalk and sees the house. Ah! And then the house disappears. Ah! It appears again. And it's Mrs. Kravitz just having a nervous breakdown. It's so funny. And on top of that, you've got the bitchy dialogue between Paul Lynde and Agnes Moorehead. That's one of my favorite ever Bewitches. And that's when Bewitched was really good. Yes, Andy, Paul Lynde did do a Halloween special with it's on. You can find it in its entirety on YouTube, the whole special. And it's bizarre, but yes, Kiss was on there. But he also had Margaret Hamilton, who played the Wicked Witch of the West, recreate her role. And then he had the actress who played Witchy Poo on HR Puff and Stuff. So you had the historic pairing of the Wicked Witch of the West and Witchy Poo together. And then there was Kiss, and I forgot who else was on there. And there was it was in the 70s, so there was disco on there. And it's pretty wild and weird and campy and out there and outrageous as can possibly be, which makes it fun. My friend Bart Andrews knew Paul Lynde, and Paul Lynde was a rather tragic man in real life. He suffered from severe alcoholism. I think he was only in his 50s when he died, and I think I read that when they did the autopsy, they said his internal organs were just like a very old man from all the drinking. But my friend said that when he wasn't drinking, he was a nice man. When he was drinking, he was a very mean drunk. Difficult. He was bipolar. He was someone who would host a dinner party and then get into one of his sulking moods or something, and he'd go to his bedroom and slam the door and leave his guests alone at the dinner table, that type of thing. It's sad, but he brought a lot of joy to people. That's undeniable. Those moments on Hollywood Squares still appear on YouTube in little sound bites. They appear on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok. He still has a following. And you may not know this, but one of his biggest fans was Greta Garbo. Greta Garbo would watch him on Hollywood Squares, and she wrote him a fan letter. And my friend Bart said that Paul Lynde had that framed in his living room, the letter from Greta Garbo telling him how funny she found him and how much she loved his work. What a compliment. What was this? I remember an episode where Arthur tried to teach this chat to Darren to get rid of Endora. Chant or something to get rid of Endora. Oh my gosh, I'm trying to remember that one. Oh yes, Joyce, Mrs. Kravitz, Abner. I had a friend in real estate, here in Los Angeles real estate. And when he was first training with the agency, they were making the rounds, going to different houses and things. The person who was mentoring him said, always know this. Every single neighborhood has a Mrs. Kravitz. Every neighborhood has a Mrs. Kravitz. So be careful. So I don't know if you guys have found that to be true. If you have a Mrs. Kravitz in your own neighborhood, they're at the window with the binoculars, spying, gossiping, always trying to put her nose into things. It was interesting. Oh, something? That's another case. Bewitch is interesting because not only did they have two Darrens, they had two Mrs. Kravitz. I just saw that. I know Sandra Gould played her. She had the red hair, and she played her in the later seasons of Bewitched. And the first actress, I am blanking on her name, but she was very ill with cancer. I think she was only on the first two seasons, the black and white episodes, and she was very ill with cancer, but she kept working. And if you notice those episodes, some of the last episodes, she's very, very thin. And I noticed there was one episode where she had a flesh-colored scarf on, so it would blend in, but it was a scarf, and she had it tucked in the front of her dress because you could see her neck was so thin, and they were trying to make her look a little fuller. But she was very ill. She kept on working, and everybody loved her. And she died right after finishing I think it was the end of the second season, and she was nominated for a Best Supporting Actress Emmy, and she won. She won a posthumous Emmy for that role. She was so good in that role. And of course, there was Aunt Clara. Now, they didn't quite have two Aunt Claras. What they did, they just replaced her with Alice Ghostley as Esmeralda. But another example of two actors kind of basically playing the same kind of role on that show. It's very interesting. Yes, Ward, I was talking about the first Mrs. Kravitz, how good she was and how she won a posthumous Best Supporting Actress Emmy for the role. Oh yeah, Andy. Watch if you've watched all the episodes. The black and white episodes, it's a different Mrs. Kravitz. Color episodes, of course, it was. Yes, thank you, Alice Pierce. Thank you. I just couldn't think of her name, and she deserves to be acknowledged. So thank you, Joyce, for bringing her up. Yeah, no, Esmeralda was no Aunt Clara. That's for sure. I mean, I like Alice Ghostley for what she did, but oh my God, Marion Lorne. And that's the other weird thing about Bewitched. She died, also won a Best Supporting Actress Emmy after her death. It was given to her posthumously. So that happened twice on the show. But oh my God, talk about, she put so much heart into that show, and she was so sweet and so endearing. And I always think of that episode where there was some sort of witches meeting, covenant or something, and they're all saying their goodbyes to Samantha, and one by one they walk through the wall and disappear. One by one, go to the wall, disappear into the wall, and then Aunt Clara walks to the wall and goes thunk right into the wall. She's all dazed and confused. It was just, she was so sweet and endearing. And it was actors like that that gave so much heart to that show. Yeah. Oh, that's right. They did. Marion Lorne and Alice Ghostley did appear together in a scene in The Graduate. Isn't that interesting? Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. Yeah, Andy, I think Tabitha, Erin Murphy, and her sister, I think Diane Murphy is her name. I believe they're the only. Oh no, wait. The actor who played Adam. I think there were also twin boys there also played Adam, but they're like the only ones still living. There might have been some minor actor. Oh no, let me think. I think the actress who. There were two actresses who played Louise Tate also. And it was, I think the later Louise Tate, she might still be living. Casey Rogers, I think was her name, but I don't know. She might have passed on. I don't know, but no major people from that show other than Tabitha. Just like I Love Lucy, the only major actor from that show still living, of course, is Keith Thibodeau, who played Little Ricky on the show. Bernard Fox, I thought he passed away because his name came to me. I don't know if he's still around. Dr. Bombay, calling Dr. Bombay, emergency right away. Oh, yes, Clara always made mistakes on her spells. She was kind of ditzy and senile, and her powers had kind of started to fail her. Oh, she was sweet. No, never intentionally. It was just accident. Both Louise Tates are no longer around. I couldn't remember if Casey Rogers had passed on or not. A friend of mine used to date her son. Casey Rogers' son. I don't think it ended too well, but anyway, he did used to date her. Let's see, where's some other comments here. They had a lot of talent on Bewitched, and those first seasons they had some good writing. Some really clever writing. Bill Asher, who directed a lot of the episodes, he used to direct I Love Lucy, for goodness sake. He directed 100 episodes of I Love Lucy. So, you had supreme talent on there. And Elizabeth Montgomery, what a lovely, lovely presence she was. And such a, as we saw subsequently after Bewitched, when she started doing dramatic roles, a very fine actress. In fact, there's an episode of The Twilight Zone that she did around 1960 or 61. She was brunette, her natural hair color. And of course, her father was the actor Robert Montgomery, the great movie star, 30s and 40s, MGM. And I've mentioned this before on here, but Robert Montgomery, my friend Evelyn Keyes, co-starred with him in the film Here Comes Mr. Jordan, which was a big hit in 1941. It was later remade by Warren Beatty as Heaven Can Wait. And she was telling me what a cold man he was in real life, uh, because I said, Evelyn, you and Robert Montgomery had such beautiful chemistry together. And she said, Chuck, it was acting. Trust me, it was acting. I had to really pull it out of myself because he just did not give you much. He was cold. And I saw a documentary. I think it was when A&E used to do that show called Biography. I don't think that's on anymore, but they did a 2-hour biography of Elizabeth Montgomery. And they talked about how she wanted him to play Samantha's father, Maurice. The great Maurice Evans ended up doing it, but she wanted her real life father, and that would have been incredible. He wouldn't do it. And they said he was very jealous of his daughter, very petty about it, very jealous because his career was kind of in the doldrums at that point, and she was riding high with Bewitched. Such a shame. And Chuck, I sang for Anastasia on Instagram, and I'm happy about it. I'm so glad. And I bet you, I haven't talked to Anastasia about it, but I know she was very touched by that, Andy. I know she really appreciated that. And of course, her show is coming on in 29 minutes. So I'm going to have to wrap this up soon. So I won't be competing with her. But let's see. I'm trying to find some other comments here. Mr. Fox also played Malcolm, Ernest T. Bass's nemesis in Andy Griffith's show. I remember that. And of course, he was in both Titanic movies, the 1952 Barbara Stanwyck, Clifton Webb version, and then a little one you might have heard of that had Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet. It's a few years later, but he was in both of those. Yes, I remember that. He was writing his, but yes, he was an English butler. And I remember there was even a little bit of a poignancy to him because he was a little bit inept. And Andy felt sorry for him and wanted to give him a chance. But he was definitely a fish out of water in Mayberry. I'm not sure where Aunt B was on that episode. But I don't know how Aunt B would have felt about having him in her kitchen. Though he might have assisted her with her pickles, her kerosene pickles. That is my favorite episode of the Andy Griffith Show, when Aunt B is making her pickles, and she's very proud of her pickles. And every year she cans a great big batch of them. And Andy and Barney don't have the heart to tell her that they're hideous. They're horrible. They can't stand them, but they can't bring themselves to break her heart and tell her the truth. And what was that, the one where Aunt B said, oh, you love my pickles so much, I'm going to enter them in the state fair. And what Barney and Andy had done, I think they went to a grocery store and they dumped all of her pickles out, and they put store-bought pickles in the jars. So they figured if they had to eat them, at least something that was palatable. And then when they found out she was going to be entering them in the state fair, they had to eat all the pickles. Guys, reminding me of Lucy and Ethel when they had the 25-pound cheese on the plane. They had to eat that whole cheese or do the best they could. Anyway, they had to get rid of the pickles, so Aunt B would make a new batch. And Aunt B said, you love my pickles so much, I made double. Anyway, that they had that horrible music, that music when people would bite into the pickles. They were so bad. What was this word? Aunt B once became a partner in a Chinese restaurant called Aunt B's Canton Kitchen. I thought you were serious there for a moment. Aunt B, Frances Bavier. Oh, we could do a whole show on this. I know I've talked about it before. I even did a video on it, but she was a very, very difficult woman in real life. She was the antithesis of Aunt B. She was the anti-Aunt B. She got along with nobody on the show, especially Andy Griffith. They were always at odds with each other. But she was a good actress. She played her role well, won an Emmy for it. And then after it all ended, she did the sequel series, Mayberry RFD, and then she retired. And she retired to North Carolina, not far from, I think, Mount Airy, which was the region that Andy Griffith based the fictitious town of Mayberry on. She actually did move back there. Also, the actress who played Betty Lou, she also retired to North Carolina. It's interesting. But I understand that Frances Bavier became quite a recluse. And supposedly she was living in her house all to herself with a whole bunch of cats. And she just didn't want anything to do with anyone. And but in the very end, and Andy Griffith talked about this on a documentary, that she phoned him shortly before she died, and it said, she admitted she was dying, and she said, "I want to make amends." And Andy said, "Well, what can I do for you?" She said, "No, only thing you can do for me, Andy, is just let me talk, let me speak my piece, and I want you to know something. It was never you. It was me." It was me, and I want to say that to you, and I want to apologize. So that's how they ended, the terms they ended on. Always, Miss Bavier was nice to Jim Neighbors and gave lessons in how to perform. Well, I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear there were some good things there. And I loved the return to Mayberry when it showed Andy going to visit Aunt Bee's grave. And when they filmed that movie, Frances Bavier was still very much alive. And Andy Griffith and Ron Howard personally went to her home in North Carolina to beg her to do the movie, or at least do a cameo in it. Just play Aunt Bee one more time. And she wouldn't even answer the door. They were standing outside. She wouldn't let them in the house. She said, "You should have called first." So that's why they just have that scene of him talking to Aunt Bee's grave. Let's see here. Betty Lynn, Thelma Lou retired to Andy's hometown, and they became her family with a strong mutual love for each other. Yeah, it was Betty Lynn. She used to live here in LA in West Hollywood, and I heard a story. I think that she was attacked. She was mugged, and she said, "That's it. I'm getting out of here. I'm getting out of here." And she wanted to live in someplace more quaint and simple. And I hope her final years were happy. I'm looking at the time here. I've been on here for an hour and a half, and I'm going to wind this down unless somebody else has another question or a subject or something you'd like me to talk about, because I'm going to take a little time just to work on some more stuff here for myself, and then be an audience member for Anastasia on her channel, The Sacred Spears. Many of you know about it because I know many of you have gone over and watched her show, and she's always grateful for it. And of course, she has her own imprint. She has her own style, her own things that she likes to talk about. What was that, Andy? Hey, quick, who were the singers on the Andy Griffith show? No, are you thinking of the Darlings? The hillbilly band singers? Which singers were you thinking of? Because I'm trying to think. I know they were called the Darlings on the show. The opening theme with the whistling, I could be wrong on this, but I think that was the Dillards. Thank you, Butterfly Fly Gal, and I love your name. It was the Dillards. That's exactly who it was. Played the Darlings. In fact, the Dillards were guests on the Judy Garland show, because she was doing her show in 1963-64. Yeah, and thank you. I couldn't think of the name, but I was going to say the whistling. I think that was Andy Griffith's own whistling, but I could be wrong on that. I got to look that one up myself. Let's see here. I'm looking for some other comments here. Does anybody else have a question for me or topic to cast a little light on? Otherwise, I'm going to wind this up soon. I mean, I'm looking at some other notes here, but I think I may just save these for next week. I always like to have my little ace in the hole card in the pocket. I generally don't have too much trouble getting on here and finding things to talk about, but I always like to have a few little prompts just in case, to bail myself out. I even told Anastasia to do that. I tell that to everybody when they do their live streams. I have some other friends who do them, and it seems to work. Um, it was Earl Hagen. I know he was the composer of the music. Did he do the whistling, or did he just compose the theme song? And that location, where they're walking to the fishing hole, is actually not far from Beverly Hills. And in all the years I've lived here, I've never gone out there to check it out. And I should do that. I should go there and make a video walking down that with the fishing pole. And I'm not a good whistler. I couldn't whistle the Andy Griffith Show theme to save my life. So I will spare you that, but I should go to that location. Ward Charles Nelson Riley, who said he got invited to eat with Lucy at a restaurant, and when she ate mashed potatoes, she covered it with a napkin to keep folks from gawking. Now, that's interesting. Well, that's true. That's a good point you make, because there are certain foods that are they're a little messy to eat. Something comes to mind for me. The appropriately named Sloppy Joe sandwich, but I'm thinking also like tacos. When you have chili on there, and it can leak out and so forth. And most of us will forgive that. But when you're a big star like Lucy and you're sitting in a restaurant, all the eyes are going to be on you. They're going to be watching you. They're going to be watching you have those awkward human moments with your food. So it's interesting that she covered it with a napkin to keep folks from gawking. Interesting. I never knew that, but that makes a lot of sense. And, it was Lucie Arnaz who I was just watching an interview, her daughter, Lucie Arnaz, an interview on YouTube. And she talked about that, about how that was one of the trappings of fame that she never wanted to have for herself, because she said as a child growing up, like when she and her mother would go to a restaurant, they could never just sit down and have a regular meal like everyone else. It was impossible. People were always walking up to the table. Oh, Miss Ball, I love you. Can I have your autograph? Blah, blah, blah. Or people staring at them and stuff. So that's an intriguing point. Oh, yeah. So it was Earl Hagen who did the whistling. Okay. Reason I wondered if it could be Andy Griffith, because Andy Griffith was quite musical in real life, as you saw in the show, and he'd play the guitar and sing. He was quite talented. And I thought it wasn't impossible he could have done the whistling, but it wasn't him. Ward, barbecue spare ribs. Yes. Oh, that is messy. Another thing that's really messy, we're on the topic, corn on the cob with butter. Other than maybe taking a knife and just cutting the corn off or something, I have never found a genteel, polite way to eat corn on the cob. I always have corn stuck in my teeth. I have butter all over my face, and I definitely would not want people watching me. So I probably would, if I were in that situation, I'd probably be discreetly holding napkin up to my face also. Spaghetti, not quite so messy, Sabrina, but I know what you're saying. I'm thinking immediately of Lucy in the Brown Derby with William Holding watching her, and she's twirling the spaghetti, trying to eat it. And yeah, you have to be a little more careful with that. And I have learned with things like spaghetti, as uncouth as it may look, it's a very smart idea to put a bib on, especially if you're dressed up. There was one time, this certainly was not spaghetti, but I had a beautiful silk tie. It was an expensive silk tie. It was pale blue. I loved it. It was the first time I ever wore it. And I was invited to attend a seated dinner. A very good friend of mine asked me if I would come, and I was honored to be there. And I was, of course, being very, very careful, my best manners and all, and eating carefully. But somehow I dripped a little bit of grease right on the tie, and I took it to the dry cleaners. They said, "We're so sorry. There is nothing we can do. If we try to take this out, we're going to take the dye is going to come out with it." And I said, "Well, could you restore the dye?" And they said, no. So my beautiful tie, I wore it one time and it was ruined. And I know that's happened with spaghetti. I've got to be I try to be careful. I try to be polite. I try to be on my best manners. I try to eat the way my mother taught me to. uh, Chris, you had corn on the cob the other night. That's done alone. Yes, thank you. Yeah, Andy, you were saying we were talking about spaghetti with the sauce on it. What about soup? Well, if you're careful with it, lasagna. Oh my God, I'm getting hungry. I love Italian food. Lasagna soup? Now that is something I'm intrigued by, Andy. I'd try that. I'd like to. I may Google see if there's a recipe for it. I'm very curious to see what it's like, what the consistency is. I'm assuming it has a lot of cheese and a lot of like pasta strips and tomatoes and so forth. Sounds good. Now, before I go, does anybody else? Oh my gosh, it's 6:46. I've definitely got to get out of here because I don't want to compete with my friend who's doing her show in about 14 minutes now. So I think I'm going to sign out. And I'll be here next week. And I thank you all very, very much for joining me. Yeah, I always feel like I'm hanging out with friends. This is a lot of fun for me. Tomorrow I will be doing, what was this? Thanks, Sir Chuck. Take care, everyone. French onion soup can be difficult to eat, Sabrina. Yeah, but it's so good. You know, we used to have a place in West Hollywood called the French Marketplace. And they had a very unique, Chris, I don't know if you ever had it when you were out here, but it was a very unique French onion soup. I've never had anything like it before or since. It just had just decadent amounts of cheese on the top of it. It was so good. And I wish I had the recipe for it. But so good. But anyway, get back on track here. I was going to say I do on Tuesdays with Dr. Whimsy Anderson, a show called Taco Tuesdays on her channel, The Oracle of Whimsy, where we talk a lot of serious news events and so forth. And we're never at a loss for material. So I'll be on there tomorrow, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. I'll be here next week, same time, same place. Please join my friend Anastasia and the Sacred Spears. Sabrina, famous bar, won a blue ribbon for their French onion soup. Oh, I'm craving French onion soup now. I want it. I want to go in the kitchen and make some. It wouldn't be that good, but I'd love to make it myself. Oh yeah, Andy, taco soup is good too. Andy says has not seen my Instagram post. Oh, I don't know. I'll mention it to Anastasia if she hasn't. I know she'll be very touched to see it, Andy. Very touched. You know, so I'll make a point of letting her know just on that chance she hasn't, or maybe she'll even, in fact, you could even mention it when you go on her show. I know you're in her audience. Just see if she's seen it, and she'll see what comment she has for you. Andy, wedding soup. Yeah, you mean Italian wedding soup? Yeah, I've had that. That's good. I want some soup. You guys have made me hungry. But anyway, I'm going to sign out for right now. Oh, I see Sasha. I don't know if she's going to come over here, but she's up on top of my bookshelf right now. Ward, Andy, but don't put wedding cookies in it. Yeah, those things would dissolve pretty quick. Yeah, it has meatballs in it. It's good. So anyway, I'm going to sign out for right now. I thank you all so very much with all my heart for coming here and joining me, and because you're the lifeblood of the show. You keep it going for me. I appreciate you very much. So I'm going to say good night for now. I'll see you next week.